Hello, and welcome everyone to another episode of Riz Talks. I'm your host, Riz, and thank you for joining me today as we explore some of the most interesting subjects questioning who we are, where we headed, and what it truly means to be human. Our motto is to think again, not take for granted anything. There are always more sides to every story. Today, we are not talking about a person, we are talking about a war that started in the Middle East but exploded into your supermarket bill, your gas station pump, and possibly even your next MRI scan. How did a conflict between US, Israel, and Iran cause fertilizer prices to double, bread to cost double in Tehran and expensive in other places, and global shipping insurance to spike? And what happens next? Today's episode is titled Iranian Intervention, the price of aggression, how the US Israel war on Iran shook the global economy. The world learned that when the Strait of Hormuz chokes, the whole planet feels it. Let us challenge the way we see the world and ourselves. Are we truly ready for the cost of escalation? For decades, the US and Israel have viewed Iran's nuclear program as an existential threat. Iran insists its program is peaceful, but trust, as they say, is like a sandcastle. It washes away fast when missiles start flying. In June 2025, Israel, a nuclear power which does not disclose its nuclear capabilities, launched major airstrikes on Iranian nuclear facilities, followed by US strikes on Natanz, Fordo, and Isfahan. After 12 days of fighting and over 1,000 Iranian casualties, a US brokered ceasefire took effect. But that ceasefire was just a timeout. 8 months later, on February 28, 2026, the United States and Israel launched a coordinated full scale war against Iran. Strikes targeted not just nuclear facilities but also leadership, trying to seek regime change, killing Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei and senior military commanders. Iran retaliated with missiles across the region, targeting Israel, Qatar, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Iraq. Iran shut down the Strait of Hormuz, the narrow waterway through which 20% of the world's oil and gas once flowed. Now let's break this down into three segments: oil and energy, fertilizers and food, and helium and high tech. Yes, helium. You'll see why this matters for your smartphone in a minute. Iran is the world's fourth largest oil reserve holder. Oil accounts for 30 to 40% of its government's revenue. So naturally, the US has been playing economic whack-a-mole sanctions for decades. Despite all this, Iranian oil exports actually increased. By March 2025, exports to China hit 1.8 million barrels a day, a 22% increase. In October 2025, Iran exported over 2.2 million barrels per day, a 7-year high. How? Iran got creative: smaller vessels, ship to ship transfers, using intermediaries in Turkey and the UAE, and shadow banking networks. It's like a high tech game of hide and seek, but with tankers the size of skyscrapers. Then came February 2026 war, and everything changed. Iran didn't just export less, it blockaded the Strait of Hormuz. By April 2026, only 300,000 barrels per day were trickling out. Shipping insurance premiums jumped, global oil prices rocketed, and the CEO of Saudi Aramco, one of the biggest oil companies in the world, warned that the energy market would need a long time to recover. The irony: the US imposed sanctions to deprive Iran of funds for its weapons programs, crippling Iran's economy while simultaneously triggering a global energy crisis that punished everyone, including US allies in Europe and Asia. But the collateral damage was real, and it wasn't just Tehran that was feeling the pain. So let's talk about fertilizer. Without fertilizer, crops don't grow, and without crops, you don't eat. Iran is the world's third largest exporter of urea, a nitrogen based fertilizer. Urea production requires massive amounts of natural gas, the same gas that flows through the Strait of Hormuz. When Iran blockaded the strait, gas supplies to fertilizer plants in Qatar, UAE, and Oman were disrupted. Then Iranian strikes hit Qatar's Ras Laffan facility in March 2025, knocking out 17% of its LNG export capacity. The result: urea prices doubled from $510 per ton in early 2026 to around $1,000 per ton. India, one of the world's largest fertilizer importers, saw its domestic production fall and initiated emergency urea imports of 2.5 million tons. But with 85% of the natural gas used for urea production being imported and 60% of that flowing through Hormuz, the system was fundamentally broken. Global food prices have surged to their highest level in 3 years. The United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization food price index hit 130.7 points in April. Now we're in May. Vegetable oils, grains, meats, everything prices have risen. Transportation costs that had increased after the Ukraine war doubled for a while. The world is paying for this war of choice decided by two people. Finally, helium. You probably think of party balloons, but helium is actually a critical industrial gas. It cools the superconducting magnets in MRI machines. It's essential for semiconductor manufacturing. Those are the chips in your phone, your car, your AI systems. It's used in rocket fuel tanks and fiber optics. Without helium, modern technology kind of grinds to a halt. Here's the problem: helium is a byproduct of natural gas production, and the world's second largest helium producer after the United States is Qatar. Qatar supplied about 63 million cubic feet of helium annually, accounting for roughly one third of global supply. When Iran struck Qatar's Ras Laffan facility on March 2, 2026, the facility that handles 20% of global LNG, helium production came to a screeching halt. Qatar Energy announced a cut in liquid helium exports. The US is already producing at near maximum capacity. Russian helium is banned due to EU sanctions. There are no new projects that can ramp up fast enough to fill the gap this year. Experts warn if the disruption holds, many industrial users will not face price increases, but the question of whether helium will be available at all. And that is a dilemma even with oil and gas. It's not just the price, it's the supply, especially jet fuel. So, yes, a missile strike in the Persian Gulf could literally delay your next MRI or make your next laptop more expensive. We started with the June 2025 strikes and the 12-day war, followed by the February 2026 war. And now the escalation, which is expected, and the killing of Iran's top leadership. We saw how the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, a waterway just 33 kilometers wide, at its narrowest point, it's like 22 miles, triggered a cascade of crises. This Iranian intervention has not gone well. Iran's own economy is free fall. The IMF warns of a double-digit GDP drop, and yet analysts note that Iran's leaders believe they can outlast US pressure by relying on internal resources and land border trade. It's a question of who blinks first. How a war in the Middle East can double fertilizer prices, trigger a helium shortage, and push 100 million people closer to hunger. How fragile is our globalized civilization? How humanity is at risk. We live in a world where supply chains are optimized for efficiency, not resilience. A single strait, a single gas field, a single shipping lane, these are the jugulars of the global economy. The US Israel Iran conflict exposed just how thin the ice really is. Are we living in a way that will leave this world better than we found it? Or are we one geopolitical tantrum away from empty supermarket shelves and cancelled medical procedure? It's now time to act, which means whatever you can do to affect change in your capacity. Nothing illegal, immoral, or unfair. The pen is mightier than the sword, and collectively we can make the change. So please share the message with others. Think again, challenge ideas, join the conversation, and subscribe. This is Riz Talks. Be curious, be kind, and do come back for more.